while modern culture celebrates big smiles and public displays of joy. Amish communities consider broad grins and loud laughter signs of pride and worldliness. Their happiness exists in quieter forms that outsiders often miss completely. These 10 expressions reveal contentment that runs deeper than any smile could show. Gelassenheit. Understanding Amish expressions of happiness requires grasping their foundational principle called Gelassenheit. This German word translates roughly as yielding, submission, or surrender, but encompasses a complex worldview where individual emotions remain secondary to community harmony and spiritual humility. In Amish theology, drawing attention to personal feelings represents a form of pride that contradicts their commitment to humility before God and community. Loud laughter signals that you're placing your own amusement above appropriate restraint. Broad smiles suggest you're celebrating personal circumstances rather than maintaining the even temperament that demonstrates true faith. This principle finds biblical foundation in Matthew 6:16, where Jesus instructs followers not to appear joyful when fasting, but to maintain normal appearances that don't draw attention. The Amish extend this teaching to all emotional displays, believing that genuine contentment manifests through actions and choices rather than facial expressions or vocal enthusiasm. When you understand Gelassenheit, you begin recognizing that Amish happiness exists everywhere in their communities. It simply appears in forms that modern culture has forgotten how to read. Quiet satisfaction. Watch an Amish man finish building a piece of furniture, and you'll witness happiness that needs no smile to communicate its depth. He stands back from the completed work, running his weathered hands slowly over the smooth wood grain, checking each joint for precision, examining the craftsmanship with eyes that reveal satisfaction no grin could express. The moment lasts perhaps 30 seconds. A deep breath, a slight nod, then immediate movement toward the next project without celebration or self-congratulation. This quiet assessment represents profound contentment in work done according to generations of accumulated skill and knowledge. There's no Instagram post showcasing the accomplishment, no selfie with the finished piece, no verbal boasting about quality or speed. The object itself speaks. And the creator's satisfaction requires no announcement because quality work needs no external validation. This same pattern repeats across Amish life. The farmer surveying fields with crops growing in perfect rows. The woman examining preserves lined on cellar shelves. The satisfaction exists in the work itself rather than in others' recognition of that work. The absence of smile doesn't indicate absence of joy, but rather joy so deeply felt it needs no outward performance. Feeding others. Step into an Amish home during mealtime, and you'll encounter happiness expressed through relentless food service that borders on aggressive hospitality. The hostess won't smile broadly while serving, but watch her eyes as she pushes second and third helpings onto guest plates with gentle insistence that allows no refusal. This feeding instinct represents one of the most visible forms of Amish contentment. A full table demonstrates God's blessing on the household. Guests eating heartily proves the family's ability to provide and fulfill their sacred duty of hospitality. The more you eat, the more satisfaction registers in the quiet demeanor of those serving. Women spend hours preparing meals for gatherings, rising before dawn to bake bread, prepare multiple meat dishes, cook vegetables from their gardens, and create desserts that demonstrate skill accumulated across generations. The labor itself brings contentment, but watching others enjoy the results creates a joy that needs no smile to validate its authenticity. The Amish saying goes, the fastest way to an Amish woman's heart is through your stomach, not because she wants compliments, but because your appetite proves you're truly welcome. That welcome, that belonging, that provision represents happiness in its purest form. Full bellies equal full hearts, and the quiet nod of approval when you reach for thirds communicates more than any beaming smile could express. Singing hymns. Amish church services last nearly 4 hours, with hymn singing occupying significant portions of that time. But you won't hear upbeat melodies or enthusiastic vocals that characterize modern worship. Instead, songs emerge slowly, in mournful tones that sound almost sad to outsider ears, accustomed to associating joy with energetic music. These hymns come from the Ausbund, a collection of songs written by martyrs imprisoned for their faith over 400 years ago. The melodies contain no harmony, no instrumental accompaniment, no individual voices standing out from the collective sound. Each syllable stretches across multiple notes, creating haunting tones that seem to contradict the often joyful lyrics being sung. But this singing represents profound communal happiness that transcends individual emotional display. Every voice joins the same melody at the same pace, creating unity that mirrors their theological commitment to community over individual expression. No one performs, no one showcases vocal talent. The happiness exists in the collective sound rather than any single contribution. When the final note fades after 20 minutes of a single hymn, the silence that follows contains satisfaction that no applause or praise could enhance. They've worshiped together in the manner their ancestors did, maintaining unbroken tradition that connects them across centuries, working side by side. Perhaps the most foreign concept to modern culture involves finding happiness in shared silence during physical labor. An Amish father and son might work together in fields for 8 hours, exchanging perhaps 20 words total throughout the entire day. This isn't awkward silence or indication of conflict. It's comfortable communion that requires no verbal validation. The work itself creates connection. Father demonstrates proper technique for hitching the plow. Son observes, then replicates the motion until muscle memory develops. Slight adjustments occur through gentle guidance rather than lengthy explanation. The shared purpose eliminates need for conversation that would only distract from the task requiring full attention and physical coordination. This pattern repeats in every Amish work context. Mothers and daughters quilting together for hours with minimal conversation. Brothers building furniture while tools provide the only sound beyond occasional brief directions. Grandmothers and granddaughters preparing meals in kitchens where ingredients speak louder than words. Modern psychology recognizes this as parallel play in children, where happiness comes from proximity and shared activity rather than interaction. The Amish extend this throughout life, finding deep satisfaction in working alongside loved ones without the constant verbal processing that characterizes contemporary relationships. The physical proximity demonstrates affection, the shared competence creates respect, the comfortable silence signals belonging and acceptance so complete that words become unnecessary. When evening arrives and work concludes, the mutual satisfaction needs no discussion because both parties felt it throughout the day. Maintaining spotless homes and farms. Walk through an Amish settlement and you'll notice something striking. Every farm appears meticulously maintained. Gardens grow in perfectly straight rows without a single weed visible. Barns stand painted and repaired. Fences line properties in exact alignment. Windows shine without streaks. Not a piece of trash mars the landscape anywhere within view. This obsessive orderliness represents happiness expressed through stewardship rather than pride. The Amish consider their property temporary loans from God, requiring careful management and grateful maintenance. A well-kept farm demonstrates appreciation for divine blessing rather than personal achievement deserving recognition. The distinction matters in their theology. Pride comes from showing off possessions or seeking compliments on appearance. Stewardship comes from maintaining what you've been given in condition that honors the giver. An outsider might not distinguish between these motivations, but the Amish recognize the difference internally. Women spend hours ensuring homes remain spotlessly clean despite large families in constant use. Floors get scrubbed on hands and knees, windows receive weekly washing, furniture gets dusted daily. These tasks bring satisfaction not from the cleaning itself, but from the order and beauty that result from the labor. The contentment comes from knowing everything occupies its proper place, functioning as intended, maintained through consistent effort that demonstrates respect for the resources they've received. When visitors comment on the pristine condition, the standard response remains simply, "We try to be good stewards." No smile accompanies the statement because the work speaks for itself without need for emotional embellishment. Giving anonymous gifts. One of the most distinctive Amish expressions of happiness involves giving without any possibility of recognition or gratitude. Families struggling financially might discover cash in their mailbox with no note or signature. Elderly community members find firewood mysteriously stacked beside their homes overnight. Widows receive baskets of preserved food on doorsteps without any indication of the source. These anonymous gifts represent joy in its purest form, untainted by expectation of recognition, thanks, or reciprocation. The giver experiences satisfaction from knowing they've helped without the corrupting influence of praise that might transform generous action into prideful performance. The community typically knows who provided the assistance. The Amish notice everything happening within their settlements despite their appearance of simple disconnection. But public acknowledgement never occurs. The recipient doesn't thank the giver directly. Others don't compliment the generosity. The act remains officially anonymous even when everyone understands exactly what happened. This practice demonstrates how deeply Amish culture has integrated the principle that genuine happiness comes from serving others rather than receiving recognition for that service. The warm feeling of helping someone in need provides all the reward necessary. Additional praise would actually diminish the purity of the experience by introducing ego satisfaction into what should remain purely altruistic action. Observers might interpret this anonymity as excessive humility or false modesty, but for the Amish, it represents the highest form of joy, helping others while avoiding any credit that might feed personal pride. Attending every community event. Amish happiness appears most visibly in consistent, faithful attendance at community gatherings, regardless of personal convenience or competing priorities. Barn raisings bring entire communities together, with every able-bodied adult participating in the day-long construction project. Weddings attract 300 or more guests. Funerals receive equally impressive turnout, with community members traveling significant distances to support grieving families. This attendance doesn't come from social pressure alone, though community expectations certainly play a role. The deeper motivation involves finding joy in collective participation, in being part of something larger than individual concerns or personal comfort. The satisfaction comes from knowing you showed up when needed, from contributing your labor to community projects, from supporting others during important life transitions, from maintaining the network of reciprocal relationships that sustain Amish life across generations. No one arrives at these events with broad smiles or obvious enthusiasm. The demeanor remains calm and composed, but the consistent presence speaks louder than any emotional display about commitment to community above self. When families count attendees at weddings or help with barn raisings, the numbers reflect the community's collective health and individual members' integration into the social fabric. The happiness exists in belonging so completely that attendance becomes automatic, rather than requiring decision or motivation beyond simple recognition that the community needs you present. Teaching skills. Watch an Amish grandfather guide his grandson's hands while teaching carpentry, and you'll witness happiness that exists entirely without verbal expression or facial indication. The older man positions small fingers correctly on tools, adjusts grip strength through gentle pressure, demonstrates techniques through slow, deliberate movements that young eyes track with intense focus. Mistakes receive patient correction without frustration or criticism. The child tries again. The grandfather adjusts again. This cycle repeats dozens of times until muscle memory begins forming and movements start matching instruction. When the child finally completes a task correctly, the grandfather's satisfaction appears only in the slight nod and immediate progression to the next skill requiring mastery. This teaching represents investment in future generations that brings profound contentment to elderly Amish individuals who recognize their own mortality and limited time remaining to transfer accumulated knowledge. Each skill successfully passed represents a small victory against time's inevitable erosion of generational wisdom. The happiness comes from knowing these children will carry forward traditions, techniques, and values that have sustained the community for centuries. The grandfather won't be remembered through photographs or written tributes, but his hands will guide great-grandchildren's hands through his grandson's teaching, creating an unbroken chain of knowledge transmission that extends backward and forward across generations. Maintaining long silences. Perhaps nothing distinguishes Amish emotional expression more dramatically than their comfort with extended silence. Families might sit together on porches for hours in the evening, rocking chairs moving in gentle rhythm, with only occasional comments breaking the quiet. This silence contains no awkwardness, no discomfort, no suggestion that conversation should fill the space. Modern culture interprets silence as problematic. We create background noise constantly, fill quiet moments with phones or music, consider conversational gaps as failures requiring immediate remedy. The Amish recognize silence as its own form of communication that expresses contentment too deep for words. The rocking chairs move at similar pace. Family members exist in proximity without need for verbal validation of connection or affection. The shared peace communicates belonging and acceptance that constant talking might actually diminish rather than enhance. This comfort with silence extends to all Amish social contexts. Meals might occur with minimal conversation. Work proceeds without chatter. Church services include lengthy silent periods for prayer and reflection. The quiet becomes a language expressing satisfaction that noise would only interrupt. While modern culture equates happiness with visible excitement, broad smiles, and public celebration, the Amish find contentment in quieter expressions that reflect their values of humility and community over individual display. Their joy appears in actions rather than facial expressions, in service rather than self-promotion, in steadfast presence rather than dramatic emotion. This approach challenges assumptions that happiness must be loud, visible, or constantly displayed to be genuine. The Amish prove that contentment can exist in forms so subtle that outsiders mistake their peace for severity, their satisfaction for stoicism, their deep joy for mere acceptance. Their expressions reveal that true happiness often requires no smile at all,